Welcome to another episode of All Things Mindful. And in this cast, we try to create moments where we can slow down our lives and at the same time create a life which is more mindful and more intentional and learn some practical habits or practical strategies for sitting in stillness, quieting our overthinking, and trusting the quiet voice or your inner voice and intuition or your little sixth sense within you, even if you are someone who has never done that before. So that is what I hope that this podcast channel will help you with. And today I am going to talk about something which may sound rather simple, but is actually quite challenging to do, especially in our modern lives right now, or if you live in an area or in a place where everything is fast paced, or if you live in a first world city, first world country, then you might find it quite difficult to quieten your mind or even to sit in silence. And when I refer to sitting in silence, it's not just about turning off your phones and distractions, it's about being aware of your inner self, your inner mind, your inner world, and also what is going on with your body and being present with what is going on within you, within your mind and your body. Because underneath all that noise and all that mental chatter is something that most of us may have lost touch with, and that is our intuition or our inner voice. It's this inner voice that already knows things in our subconscious minds before our logical brain catches up to them. And today we are going to talk about why silence, sitting in silence and quieting our minds can feel uncomfortable for some of us, especially if you rarely do this, or if you're someone who is very action oriented and always on the go. So, we are going to discuss what we can do to quieten our minds and access our intuition and make better decisions, and how to learn how to sit in silence if you have never done that before. All right, so let's start here. It can feel very uncomfortable or very awkward for us to just sit still and be silent, especially if you are someone who's not used to doing this. So when I refer to sitting still, of course, you are on your own. You're on your own. No, no electronics around you, no music, no scrolling, no distractions, no notifications, no form of distractions around you, just you and the quiet surroundings, just you and you alone, I would say. For most of us, that awkwardness or even that discomfort can be very unsettling. And we are living in this world where we are engineered to accept a lot of input within our mind. So, input from social media, input from the news, input from forums, input from websites, and more. And we are very used to notifications, all sorts of background noise, mental chatter, to do lists, to do things, to do tasks running through our minds. And we are very used to planning ahead, planning what to do tomorrow, planning to do within the next hour, time blocking, what have you, and other productivity tools. So these are very common for those of us who are living in the first world. So when silence finally shows up, it can feel almost deafening for some of us because all the thoughts that we've been avoiding, thoughts and emotions, will start to surface. And some of us may not be very comfortable with these emotions which start to surface when we sit still. However, that discomfort or that awkwardness is not a sign that something is wrong with us. Okay. So it's actually very normal. It's a sign that you're not used to hearing yourself think or not used to hearing your inner voice. And that's exactly what I'm going to try and share some strategies to help you do and achieve in this episode. If you're wondering what intuition feels like, for me personally, it feels like a knowing feeling. There are no emotions attached to it. Intuition doesn't feel charged, doesn't feel like it's charged with emotions. It's quiet, it's knowing, it's stable, it's reliable. It's like that very reliable, stable friend that you have in your life. Intuition is something quite similar to that. That's the image that I get in my head. So if your life is full of constant noise or full of mental chatter and distractions and notifications, you might find it very difficult to hear your intuition. This reminds me of the time when I had to make a decision really quickly and I was really I was kind of desperate. I wouldn't say the word desperate, but I was really trying to come up with a solution and decision really quickly. So I knew that sitting still, being silent, is going to help me be in touch with my intuition and give me the answer. But I was sitting still in a very anxiety ridden state, in a very urgent state, in a fearful state, fearful of making the wrong decisions, that is. And it somehow made it very difficult for my intuition to speak to me. It didn't come up at all during that time. This is this is a reminder for us to be in a very calm, regulated state, in a state where our nervous system is regulated and calm, and at the same time we are present and hyper aware of what's going on around us and alert. So we have to ideally be in that situation before we can access our intuition. All right, so you may be wondering what's actually going on in our mind when we quiet it or when we sit in silence. So at first, if you have not done this before, it's going to be chaotic for you. Our minds will start replaying all the past conversations, the conversations you had with your friends yesterday, worrying about tomorrow, thinking what you have to do in 1 hour's time, being aware of the time, and telling yourself, I only have 1 hour or I only have 10 minutes to sit in silence right now, being hyper aware of deadlines, whether they are imposed on yourself or by other people. So your mind will be occupied with all these things initially, and that is very normal. And if you stay with it, even if it's just for a few minutes, past that very initial discomfort, you will feel a difference. You will start to feel a difference within your body and in your head space. If you try to sit with yourself for a few minutes, your mental chatter will start to slow down. And underneath that chatter or that mental noise is another quieter layer. So this layer is in between our mental noise and our intuition. So this layer that I'm referring to is more of a calm state. It's a state where you are present and also hyper alert of what is going on around you. And you're very present in your body and you're very present with everything that is going on around you. So underneath that layer is where your intuition is. So your intuition is not the loud reactive thoughts that we have in our minds, but it's that state underneath that layer that I was talking about. That is why many people say that their best ideas or the intuitive hits come when they are relaxing in the shower, relaxing in the tub, when they are out on a walk in nature, or before falling asleep, or when they are involved in a hobby which makes them be in the flow and forget time. So when they are in that state, that's when we can start hearing our intuition more clearly. Because those are the times in the day when all that noise in our lives actually drops and we can hear our inner voice more clearly. All right, so you might be wondering, how do I practice sitting in silence? How do I quiet my mind to access my intuition and make better decisions for myself? Well, I'll share some examples for you to start. You don't really need a luxurious retreat or a fancy app, even. Actually, all you need is just you and a place where you can be completely alone. And first of all, we are going to start with just, let's say, 5 minutes. So if you've not done this before, we can start with 5 minutes. I know that some of you may be overachieving in nature or you are very action oriented. You want to aim for 30 minutes of silence on your first day or your first try. But that is, of course, not realistic. That's a very high expectation. And we will burn out really quickly if we set such high expectations on day one. So we can start with just 5 minutes first. Just you and yourself alone. No phones, obviously, no phones, no screens, no distractions. And what you're going to do during this time is to listen to your breath or just be aware of the cycle of your breath. Breaths coming in, leaving your body, coming in, leaving your body. So that's what we're going to do for 5 minutes if you are not used to sitting in silence. And we will be tempted to quote unquote clear our minds. This is where we get stuck. We think that silence means having zero or no thoughts at all, but that is not usually realistic or possible. So what we are going to do is we are going to notice the thoughts in our minds. But we are not going to fight those thoughts. We are not going to chase those thoughts. We are just going to watch them move. So in other words, you can visualize them like fluffy clouds, and you are going to see your thoughts moving from right to left. So it's like little fluffy clouds bobbing gently from right to left. So you're taking an observer's position towards your thoughts, just observing them, not fighting them, and not engaging with them. And if you feel ready, you can even ask your intuition a question at this time. So perhaps there is something that you want to answer for. You can telepathically ask your intuition that question. So it can be something like, should I take this job? Should I go on this trip with my friends? Should I buy that very expensive item, which I like, but it's expensive? So start with one question first, ask one question and see what comes up. So sometimes you may not get an answer from your intuition, especially if you're very emotionally attached to the answer. Let's say there is a job that you want very much and you want to ask your intuition whether you got it, whether you passed the interview or not. It's going to be really hard to get an answer from your intuition unless you are someone who is not emotionally attached to the answer. So that's when we learn the art of detachment. If you are someone who's familiar with the law of attraction, the art of detachment or detaching yourself from your desires is something you may have heard about. So if you want your intuition to speak to you, it is best to not have very strong emotional attachments to the answer. So some people will actually literally hear the voice of their intuition. Some people will just have a knowing feeling. It's called the claircognizance. Yes, it's called the claircognizance. Some people are claircognizant and they have a knowing feeling. Some people can feel it in their bodies. And some people actually see images or see synchronicities. So your intuition speaks to each person differently. If you want to know, you can recall a time when your intuition gave you the right answer about something and get a sense of how it feels to you within your body. For me personally, I'm claircognizant, so I get a knowing feeling. I get a knowing feeling with no emotions attached. It's a neutral knowing feeling. So that's how my intuition speaks to me. And you can also feel it within your body sometimes. So, for example, if you ask your intuition this question, should I take up that job offer? And if you feel a tightness in your chest or a tightness on your shoulders, this is from personal experience, most likely the answer is no. But if you feel an expansiveness in your chest, most likely the answer from your intuition is a yes. So this does not apply 100% of the time because I think our emotions and our thoughts can come into play, can also disturb the messages our intuition gives us. But this is also one way for you to communicate with your intuition. And some of us like to have a particular routine around this. Some of us like to be in silence at the same time, same spot, with the same time duration each day. But that is not necessary. But if you think that helps for you, you can do that. It is very helpful for you to find out what activities actually put you in the right state of mind and what activities actually regulate your nervous system and makes you very receptive to your intuitive guidance. For some people, it's walking outside in nature. For some people, it's sitting in a cafe and observing people, observing their surroundings. For some people, it's just sitting in silence in the morning, basking in the sun by the window. So whatever regulates your nervous system and puts you in a very present state, take note of it. And that is a very good example of when you can ask your intuition for guidance. And I know that some of you will have this question. How do I know if it's my intuition talking or my anxiety and ego and fear talking? There's a very clear distinction between the two if you're very used to listening to your intuition talk. So your fear, anxiety, and ego is usually pretty loud, urgent, and impatient. It wants an answer right now, and it pushes you to take action right now. So if you have that kind of urgent, impatient feeling, it's most likely not your intuition talking to you. Intuition tends to communicate to us, much calmer, quieter, stable, no emotions attached manner. It doesn't need any form of convincing. It shows up, it's clear, no emotions attached. That's the most important factor. And it doesn't need to justify why it's correct. It doesn't need to defend itself. And our anxiety or ego or fear will always argue back with us. Let's say your intuition says that job is not good for you. Our anxiety or ego will argue back. What if that's the only job offer we are going to get? What if we are going to go broke if we don't take the job offer? What if that job offer is good for us? Your anxiety and fear will try very hard to convince you why a particular decision is right. But our intuition does not need to convince or defend itself. It's just there, no emotional attachment, no emotions whatsoever. Very confident voice, I would say. So the more you practice sitting in silence, right, the easier it is to tell the two apart. Because you get very familiar with the essences of both voices. And I do have a homework for you. This is a very interesting and fun homework. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if there is a decision that you have at the back of your mind, maybe you want to purchase something, but you're not sure, something expensive that you're not sure of, or you're not sure whether you want to go on that trip with your friends or not, or some other relatively small decisions, what you can do is you are going to make that decision on your own, listen to your inner voice without any input from anybody or anything. So that means no Googling, no reading of Reddit forums, no surfing of Facebook groups, no surfing the internet, nothing. No listening to podcasts for ideas, nothing. We're just going to listen to your inner voice and your own opinions, and we're going to make a decision based on your own inner voice with no input from other sources. So that's my homework for you. You can try that and tell me how it is. I will give you an example. So recently I was looking for a platform. I want to create workshops for all things mindful. And I was looking at this particular platform, which is $600. And I wasn't sure if I want to invest $600 on this platform when there might be other cheaper options available. So what I did was I was surfing Reddit forums, looking at Facebook groups, Googling, doing all sorts of research to find out whether this $600 purchase is worth it or not. And instead of making me feel comforted, all this information was giving me analysis paralysis. So what I did was I closed my laptop and I gave myself 24 hours to just be on my own, listen to my intuition, listen to my inner voice, and not ask for any input from anything or any sources at all, and see what answer comes out. And in the end, I discovered that I felt really expensive in the heart chakra area when it comes to the idea of buying that $600 software. And I bought it yesterday. And it felt really good after purchasing it. I know that it is the right decision for me. So for me, listening to my intuition worked in this example. And I hope you will do that homework that I mentioned, and you can tell me how it goes in the comment section. I hope it works out for you as well. Sometimes more information from other sources is not always a good thing. Sometimes all you need is just the information within. I hope that this is very helpful for you, and I will see you in my next episode. Goodbye.